away. I just told John I forgot how to do live without stressing out. So he said, "Okay, cool, record, let's go." Yes,
Time to
indeed.
just jam through that wall. We are going to break down that brick wall.
Yeah.
You were just telling me you've had an insane number of kids in the house.
Yes. So yesterday, oh, it's school holiday in Australia again, and yesterday there was 7 kids, 4 dogs, a trampoline, and all the good stuff happening. So it's live. You might hear or might not hear. Currently, there's only my kids at home, but it's a rapidly evolving situation, and the neighborhood just decides to gather suddenly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we are also in school holidays, in on down the bottom of Australia, and so it's been 2 weeks, and the first week we had another like stomach flu virusy
No.
thing that went through everyone, which was great. And then now we've got a second like cold going through. I haven't got it yet, thankfully, but yeah, our 2 weeks have had two unique sicknesses go through
Mm.
most of the people in the house. So it's great. It's great.
And now,
It's great
now
fun.
you just jinxed yourself with the saying
Yeah.
like, "Hey."
Yeah. Just gloated about the fact that I'm invincible. I can do anything. No sickness can get me. Yeah, terrible idea.
Yep. How
All
have you
right.
been outside of this chaos of the sickness? I feel like I haven't spoken to you in a long time.
It has been a long, long, long time. If you're like listening to the podcast, or watching it on YouTube or Twitter, I've started actually releasing the episodes, which is one good thing. But we're like probably we're still another like month or longer ahead with the number of episodes that we haven't released. So if you're joining us live, we do a live stream of us recording it, then you're probably up to date. But if you are listening to the podcast, you'd think, well, they've just been doing their thing weekly. They just seem to be talking about topics that were like a month or two out of date. But that's fine. Maybe they're just living in the past, which we were because it was the past. But now we're back to recording. So what's
Yes.
been happening in your life for like a month? I haven't seen you for, I think, we tried to do one recording which didn't work for technical reasons, but I think it's been about a month or longer since we've done a recording, right?
Yep. You're gonna have to entertain the crowd. I just mentioned the holiday. My name has been called out, so you entertain the crowd for 1 minute, and I will be right back.
All right. I'm going to pretend I'm explaining this to Simon, but something that happened a while ago now that we're planning an episode on was Superbase Launch Week 12. And so if you're not familiar with Superbase, the company that I work for, we offer hosted Postgres and a whole bunch of open source tools that wrap around a Postgres database and give you things like auth, file storage, edge functions. Simon is pretending to swim in the background while I am holding the podcast down.
I'm back.
Anyway, we do every like 3 or 4 months, we do a big launch week where we launch a whole bunch of features. And the most recent one was launch week 12. And yeah, we launched heaps of stuff. I did heaps of videos. Check out the Superbase YouTube channel if you want to see all of the things that we did launch. But one of the extra special cool things that we dropped is something called postgres.new. So if you head over to the URL postgres.new, you will be presented with like a chat GPT like interface where you can chat with a robot about building out a database. And it's super powerful because you can just be like, build me an e-commerce platform. And it's like, cool, here's all the tables that you would need. Would you like me to populate it with some demo data? And you're like, yeah, sure, do that as well. And so it's just a super fast way to quickly build out a database, and it's all running 100% in the browser and using some really cool stuff that the Electric SQL team have been working on called PG Lite, which is basically like SQLite,
Postgres
but
Lite.
for Postgres. So yeah, everything in a portable little file or a few files that you can put anywhere. So you can kind of use this ChatGPT interface to like build out your schema and add some demo data. And then you can just export the entire thing as a portable database that you can go and just put in an S3 bucket or Superbase file storage or wherever. It's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the standout feature for me. That was one that was like, this is actually like game changing and super cool. But yeah, go and check out the Superbase blog for all of the other things that we launched, or the Superbase YouTube channel if you want to see me talking enthusiastically about it and moving my arms too much. There are so many comments on the Superbase YouTube channel that are like, is this guy recording on a trampoline? Or like, we need to strap his hands down to the desk so he stops like emphatically waving them around. So I think I just get a little too excited about talking about databases, which is probably a pretty weird thing.
I think I told you once I put your videos on mute and then I imagine you just freestyle rapping in your.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure there's some AI goodness that could happen there. Just like take an archive of all of my videos and just make freestyles from them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's good. Animation and body language is awesome. I do the same. You see, I just did it.
Yeah.
The last
Yeah.
thing you want is be monotone and just be like a talking head without a body.
That's right. Yeah. Got to
Thank you
keep it exciting.
for holding the fort while I was handling the holiday. There was no problem. Actually, the family is going away, so it's gonna be pretty quiet, unless they go pick up more people.
Yes, my kids also might appear at that door. If you're watching the video stream, they might pop up and start banging on the window, asking me to come play on the trampoline. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah. So yes, we haven't spoken in a long time, and because a lot of things have happened. One of them, I'm not quite ready to speak about it now, but I think in the future I'll be able to say lots of things. I've onboarded a new client at ThinkMill, which is it's happening on a different computer in a different account, locked out of all my logins. So it makes it super difficult to maintain a public life on my like usual social media accounts and yeah, I have this like the work and the personal brand thing are very separated at the moment, but I'm working in to bridge the gap once again. And when that happens, I'll let you know
Yeah.
a lot about it. But I had the green light to talk about it at the upcoming Laracon AU conference talk that I'm giving in about 6 weeks.
Sick.
I
That
knew
would be
from
awesome.
I knew from like April that I was gonna speak, and it's November. It's like the second week of November, so I was like, yeah, 5 months away, whatever. And I always told myself, whenever we hit October, which is the month before, this is when I get a lock in. Well, we are in October now, so I guess I got a
Nice.
lock in now. But yeah,
Is
so I've been
Laracon AU? Is that happening in Sydney or Brisbane?
Brisbane this year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. There's a bunch of the OGs, core team members from Laravel that will fly out, and it's Laravel does things really well, and Michael Durinda, who organizes the AU version of the conference, is doing a tremendous job. So it's gonna be fun. I already know it's gonna be high quality people, and just the whole conference is a vibe.
Yeah, I imagine does Taylor fly over to do a
Taylor will be
keynote and
here.
things?
Yes.
Yeah, sick. That's awesome. Are they doing a basketball game?
Well, it's I don't. I'm sort of trying to talk to people and make it happen, but I've been so busy that I've, pun intended, dropped the ball on this basketball game.
I will fly to Brisbane to play a basketball game with all of these people if
Yeah,
that happens.
I've tried to reel you in somehow. You know how Wes Buss and Scott Talinsky were the announcers for the
Yeah.
game? I was like, oh, maybe John and I, but then I was like, no, I want to play. So maybe John is
We'll
running.
take turns. We'll sub out. So when you're on the bench, you can be running the podcast, and then I'll swap with you. Yeah.
But yeah, there is a basketball venue because it's at the university campus.
Cool.
There's the ability and there's some interest. Not as much as we'd want to, but maybe something's gonna happen.
Yeah. Cool.
I've,
Nice.
I've made the mistake of telling my son that this game might happen, and he's so keen to join the team. And if it happens, I would 100% take him, and he would 100% be one of the best players on the court. Like
That's awesome.
he's insane, and I thought that'd be pretty cool to have my. Oops, that would be pretty cool to have my little kiddo, like a mini Simon Swiss on the Laravel versus whoever game.
Yeah, it'll be like LeBron and mini LeBron.
Yeah.
Is that happening this season? They're going to be both playing on Lakers, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I don't know how much Bronny will play, but he's on the team. And
Very
they had
cool.
the media day, like the NBA is about to kick in once again, and they do this media day before training camp starts, and that's where everyone takes photos with the new jerseys and like all the hype. Like everyone has missed, all the basketball heads have missed the whole action for like months, and so it's the first day of like, oh my god, it's starting again.
Yeah, I'm super excited. My fantasy basketball team, I've started receiving the emails that we need to set up the draft and do all of that stuff. Have you ever played fantasy basketball?
I know what it is. I have not, but I'm very familiar with the
Okay.
concept.
We're starting a, maybe we can talk about this after the podcast. We're starting a super base
Oh,
fantasy
fantasy.
basketball team
Yeah.
as well, or fantasy basketball league. So maybe you could join that if you want like a gentle ramp into learning what it is. But for anyone that doesn't know what fantasy basketball is and thinks we're just talking crazy talk now. It's basically like you have different teams. So like you have like six different people that are joining a league, and then each of you has a team, and you draft or pick different players that are actually playing in the NBA. And then you choose who you want to play each day, and you earn the points that they actually earn in the NBA. So it's kind of like a fun, like it's fun because it's basketball and because I'm into basketball, but also it's just like a fun kind of stats based board game, I guess, where you're
You can
uh
do it from your couch without moving your legs.
yeah. Yeah. All right. But it's like, yeah, it's a fun way that you can like you're kind of interacting with the real world and like playing a game based on the real world as well. It's fun.
Yeah.
Highly recommend to anyone out there who has a small any kind of minority interest in any kind of sport. Check out the fantasy version of that because it's fun.
Yeah. Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of basketball, as we tend to do, I have had to make a very big decision, which is it's kind of hard to process because it's just acknowledging that I'm old and not finished, but on the finish decay phase of on
Finishing.
the the post economic. I'm on the post. I don't know if you've seen all these tweets about post economic. Anyway, I'm on the post career tail end of my career, and so I had to. I'm not injured, but I'm feeling my body's telling me that it's in that zone where any day, any movement, little false landing could snap something pretty bad. And so I had to announce to I'm playing in this like elite level league, and I no longer play. I told the team that just the risk reward ratio wasn't quite there. I honestly thought they'd be like, oh, whatever, you're old, who cares? And they all wrote back really nice messages of support and stuff. And yeah, that
You
felt
should
pretty good, but it also feels I'm happy I made that decision. I instantly felt better, and I still play. I played last night in a like lower comp, but just kind of the moral acceptance that okay, now now it's time to probably realize that the 18 to 22 athletic prime group is kind of like that Lightning McQueen movie when there's the new hot black car. I don't know how it's called, and he's trying to chase it, and his seat goes further, and he's like, oh, and then he blows up a tire. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I feel like from my very limited experience of playing basketball before I got injured, that I was in the lowest possible grade, so it was the F grade, and I feel like that was the most like dangerous one in terms of like injuries and things because people aren't good at basketball. They don't know their limits, and yeah, they get like way more aggressive because rather than having the skills and trying to win based on like strategies and tactics, yeah, they just try and like run through people to who are trying to defend, or yeah, lots of elbows and yeah, I feel like maybe it's safer play. Like you're probably still playing at like quite a
Yeah,
high level, not just this super elite level, but like yeah, don't go for F grade is what I'm saying. If you're trying to avoid the injuries, it won't be because of you. It will definitely be because of someone else.
it is absolutely accurate. Australia has a lot of rugby fanatics and rugby players, and these are the sort of people that their primary sport is rugby, and then they're like, oh, we should put a team of basketball together. It sounds like fun, but they just have that mentality of just being so rough, and that's exactly where I'm intended to play, and I'm playing. It's called the A grade, so it's like the top league locally, but the team I was playing at was like the best local players go play against other cities around. Like it's kind of like you you make it outside of your little town, and then you go play other towns. And that's the one that's just a little bit too much. Honestly, I would have been able to finish the season probably, but every Tuesday is when we have training, and the training is much harder than the games, and every Tuesday in the morning, I have this like dread of like, am I gonna go get through the practice? And I was like, I don't need this stress.
Yeah,
Uh, and I tried to go when I was semi-injured and say, oh, I'll practice half speed, but the drills, the way they're designed, you have to dive on the loose balls and like go
sure.
completely crazy. So I was like, yeah,
You should have gone for like one last game. We'll just have one last game just to see out the career, and you definitely would have had
okay, I
a
have
very
a
bad injury.
yeah. The good news is I did not know, I genuinely didn't know I was gonna bail, but I played last weekend and we played the weakest team in the comp, so I had more minutes that usually I don't get that many minutes, but this one I played almost the whole game. Anyway, we won 101-30, and I'm the one uh, who scored the last basket to go over 100.
That's
It's
awesome.
really
That is
nice.
the perfect thing to end the career on right there.
Nobody in the team has scored ever since because that was the last game. So and now it's school holiday, so for the next 2 weeks I am the bearer of the very last basket of the Sunshine Conference, and it's to go above 100, which is kind of cool. I
That's very
can
cool.
retire. It's a good point to retire.
Did they have like cameras and stuff set up, like just constantly recording that you can go back and watch after the game?
Some clubs, most teams have parents or players doing like a Facebook live stream, and
Right.
it's various. Some people just like hold it like this and go
Yeah.
and some have a tripod and like a proper setup. And there's even gyms where there's like a roof fisheye stuff that captures with some sort of AI that follows the action a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
I had a
yeah,
friend who played in like a higher level than me, and yeah, they had exactly that. It blew my mind that he could go back and watch the entire game and like actually like assess his
oh
shots
yeah,
and like get better and improve his
yeah.
technique based on like watching himself actually play the game. Very
I,
cool.
I think I mentioned that in a previous pod. There's an app called Glory League, and what they do is they send you one of these cameras with AI smarts, and then everyone who's enrolled in the team, because you have to use your email address to have an account with Basketball New South Wales or what, like I'm pretty sure in every country it's the same. You're a registered player, and with that account you can access your highlights, and then you literally finish a game, and because it's uh, whenever you play a game, there's a bench scorer, a person that inputs the points in an iPad in the app. So it's like, oh, number three scored a layup, 2 points at 2 minutes 48, whatever. As soon as the game's finished, you can go on the website and you have your like already edited highlights of all your baskets, and it's the UI is really nice, and then you can add rebounds or you can do a little clip and share on socials, and it's so well done. Check it out, Glory League, and that you could do the same concept with so many sports. I'm sure it exists, but when I saw that, I was like, "Damn, this is really cool use of technology." And
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, that's super cool. Because the other idea is everyone has their own personal drone flying around watching their game, and that probably gets a little bit dangerous.
I think they actually this company was born out of a privacy thing, because a lot of in Australia at least it's illegal to, like, in the US there's always these mixtapes, like if you on high school there's 10 people sitting baseline with like a DSLR camera and doing highlights for like the scouts, like they're preparing a mixtape for the player to as a portfolio to like get to the next level. And then this movement started appearing in Australia. Like every gym had like someone with like a badge and like, oh, I'm with like Bowley's Life or whatever, like just accredited filmmaker to make highlight mixtape. And then the New South Wales government said, no, 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 you cannot do this because parents are not. Like you film someone and then in the background there's other kids and their parents don't want them to be on socials and stuff.
Sure.
So they started like banning people with cameras from so you can't film pretty much. And
Right.
so the answer was, everyone was like, "But we need some footage," and then so they started doing these things. So it's kind of controlled and behind the email security, whatever.
Yeah. Cool. All right, we should move off basketball again before we lose everyone.
We never do. And that wraps it up for another
Yeah,
episode.
that's the end of the episode. Actually, yeah, that'd be interesting to actually analyze like
The
how
ratio.
much of the percentage of the podcast we spend on each thing. Because like, we kind of we've branded ourselves as like a technical podcast about like coding and content creation. But then I reckon we probably spend more time talking about sports and Ryobi products. They're probably the two bits that get the most airtime.
That's the way, though.
Oh, I forgot to send you. I took a photo.
Of
Forgot to
basketball.
send it to you. Bunnings have
Ryobi.
started Ryobi merch, and so you can get like Ryobi shirts and like all kinds of things. And so, firstly, I think we should just get it just cause, but then we should totally hook up some sponsorship so we can get ourselves some free Ryobi gear.
Ryobi t-shirt. I have a perfect mashup of the two things we talk: basketball and Ryobi. We have many basketballs at home. They're always flat, and we always buy these crappy pumps on Amazon that break after 2 weeks. We tried USB rechargeable pump. Breaks. Anyway, on Sunday, I went to a tryout for my sons for the rep team for next season, and I saw this thing. It's gonna be blurry, but it's a Ryobi
Oh wow!
compressor pump, and it works with the same battery that I have three of them just next to my hand here.
Perfect.
And I showed that to my wife. She was like, "Oh yeah," because we always try this like mini compressor stuff, and we buy the cheapest, which usually is like we've done an episode on buy once, cry once thing.
Yeah, nice.
That
That's
was my
awesome.
segue. Ryobi basketball, the gif with the two muscle arm going.
Yeah. Perfect. And then the Navbar podcast is in the middle of that
Yes,
handshake.
I do
Uh,
have a great topic. If you have no idea, if you have ideas, fire
I've
up.
got so many things to talk to you about. I wrote like a quick few dot points. Like there's just so much stuff has happened. But did
Yeah.
you say you have something you want to talk about?
Well, part of my new role, which is on this separate machine and separate world, is I do front end development. I do Next.js and Tailwind CSS, but I also do almost at 50% capacity video editing and motion graphics, which lately I've been super into motion graphics, which if you don't know what it is, it's kind of like adding titles and effects and basically embellishing some video footage. So you just have like the raw footage that you edit and then you add some infographics and just post production stuff. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of that, adding captions, adding special effects and stuff. And I'm pretty excited about this whole space. And yeah, I've tried different tools. I don't know if you're interested, if you have questions. I
Absolutely. Yeah. Like what because I love doing like I love using the Fusion page in
yes.
DaVinci Resolve and like trying to hack together some things myself. But like, like everything else, it's a whole career that you need to dedicate a whole bunch of time to get really good at it. And so like I feel like like I have just enough kind of design stuff from doing front end development for a long time and just enough kind of like video production technical understanding to kind of tie it all together. Um,
Yeah.
but then I see what someone else has done, or something that you've done, like all the Tailwind stuff that you were doing even way back, all of the beautiful like timed up musical like overlay things, all the like angle swipes and stuff just look amazing, and you can always tell when like someone like you actually knows what they're doing versus someone like me just kind of trying to throw it together.
So all these Tailwind videos, I almost never ever use the Fusion page. I was using transitions and stuff in the edit page. Basically, if you don't understand these words, Fusion is kind of like the engine for motion graphics in Resolve. And typically, most program where you do motion graphics, the whole idea is you have frames, like a video is a set of frames, and then you have keyframes that you can animate. So on the first frame, you can say the position is top left, and then on the 30th frame, it's bottom right. And then if you set these two keyframes, the software will kind of transition from 1 to 2 in a linear way, straight line. And then you can tweak the easing curves. And it's very much like CSS animation. If you've done any, you have keyframe animations, and then you can set ease in out or ease out bounce or whatever. Most programs use a very Photoshop-like layers approach. So you draw a rectangle in the background or Figma and you have your rectangles. And then when you enter Fusion, it's like you throw all this knowledge out the windows and you enter this concept of nodes, which are weird as hell. And it's like this graph of things with arrows pointing to each other, almost like a mental graph or like a obsidian sort of like mind map, which is super confusing. But I'm a Tailwind CSS representative unofficially these days. And I just realized this is the exact same approach to Tailwind CSS. If you want to build something, instead of having a CSS class that has all the styles, you have one node for the background color and one node for the height and the width, and then one node for the rotation. And you kind of chain all of this. You compose these little bits. Each node in Fusion is like a single purpose item. And it really like, as a programmer, it really vibes with the whole functional programming where each thing does one thing and it does it well. And then you reach for that thing to compose effects. And after doing 2 or 3 weeks of Resolve Fusion, I tried a different software which has these layers. And I was like, layers are so confusing. Why can't I just assemble little weird nodes together? And
Yeah.
it's funny how quickly the mindset kind of can shift when you dive into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. The thing that always gets me with that is I understand the nodes and the layering and like how everything is going to
Yeah.
draw and how it's all going to appear on the screen. The thing that I always find just so tedious and frustrating because I feel like the interface just doesn't do it in a way that I want to see it visually represented is like transitions over time. So like when you are animating something to something,
Yeah.
like the keyframes view is just like it's too, I don't know, it just doesn't present it in the right way. And so I always find putting together like a composition
Mm-hmm.
totally fine doing that in nodes, but being able to like if there's one thing that's not animating correctly, like the text animated across and then the subtext animated down from there, but it happened at the wrong time or it didn't happen for long enough or whatever.
Yeah.
It's always those things where I'm like, I just want it to be easy. I want to be able to visually see all of that happening. Because I guess the other side of it is if you do it in the edit page or in some kind of like timeline view,
Uh-huh.
you're looking at all of those blocks and where they happen, and you can just grab one and move it, and you can grab the endpoint and move it slightly over, and then it happens later.
Yeah.
I feel like that's always like the bit that frustrates me the most.
Yeah. So in Fusion, we can move on to something else, but there's this panel called splines, which is kind of like the visual representation of these easing curves. And you can open. It's kind of small on the side by default, but if you make it bigger, give it some space, you can see exactly what you were saying, like all the keyframe and how they over the timeline, how they report to each other, and then you can drag them and kind of sort of recreating this edit page feel of like moving your blocks around to coordinate them.
Yeah.
That's not very intuitive. But the thing I got really excited about, and I kind of talked to you offline recently, is so I consider myself I'm a front end developer first, but I love design and video editing, and now motion graphics. So there's that triangle around dev, which kind of appeals to me. And then I found this app through doing motion graphics. I found this app that has 3 panels. One design panel, which is very, very, very similar to Figma, like same keyboard shortcuts, do rectangle, artboards, mask, clipping stuff, like Figma, not clone, but like a very, very heavily inspired. That's the first panel of the app. Second one is keyframe animation, and it's completely different to Fusion, but it's very much like After Effects or any other layer-based keyframe. So you design stuff, and then you go in the animation panel, and you can set keyframes to make things move. And that up to here, this is kind of what After Effects and a lot of stuff do. But then they have a third one, which is called state machines. And this is where the mind just goes. Basically, you can create different animation with different states, like idle and then active or walking, running, whatever you want. And then you can set triggers. Think like a programmer for a minute. A mouse that clicks, a hover, a touch, whatever, 5 seconds. And these triggers can switch the state machine to a different state. And you can say, from this state, you can only go to that state or back to the starting point. So think David Capiano from State Machines and X State, and then whoever created Figma and whoever created After Effects, you put the three of them in a room and say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could make keyframe animations with SVG and then let the user click or interact or move the cursor and the little character follows the mouse everywhere magically. And this app is called Rive, R-I-V-E.app. And as a already semi-designer, motion graphics and programmer, I jumped in this world and I was like, oh my God, I can do anything. Because now I can do like stuff I would do in Fusion, but I can put it on the website and say if the user clicks on a button, the little character grows or the button wiggles or whatever. So you can make motion graphics that are interactive and respond to the user input in the browser, which is crazy. And you can also export to a normal video if you just want to do a little motion graphics banner for like a Twitter post. So it kind of, it's not as powerful as After Effects, but it kind of replaces it for many simple tasks. But then you can export the code file that you bring, and they have like libraries for React and Svelte and all stuff where you pass the props. So on click, you trigger this state from the state machine. Like it's insane. It's so powerful, and they have a lot of videos that blow your mind if you have a look at it. And yeah, I discovered this, and I'm just diving straight in, and I'm like, this is the future. Like, there is no way people are not going to have that all over websites. And I do think like websites like Linear, where you have the bento grid with all the crazy, you move the mouse and there's this little dashed line, lasers going everywhere. It's either Rive or the other one's called Spline, but it's more for 3D. But Rive makes really small footprint files, and it's freaking amazing as a developer.
It looks incredible. And just like the website just looks awesome, and all of the animations that are on it, just exactly what you're describing. Super feels nice. And also it's surprisingly inexpensive. Like, it's free as a personal user.
You can have only three different files, but you can export them and do all maybe not all the things, but a lot of things. I've only been playing with the free one. The company that I'm consulting for, they have a professional Rive account, and that's how I kind of dove into it, because I was doing motion graphics in Fusion, and then someone said the classic, oh, that would be so cool if when you hover on the card, this triggers. And I was like, yeah, no, but it doesn't work like this, that motion graphics. And then one of the designers said, dude, yes, check this out. It works exactly like this.
So what does it spit out the other side? I may have been looking at the site while you explained that, but when you export it and then you want to put it in, let's say, a React application, so you've got like an app or Astro if you want, like, what does it look like? Does it just spit out HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files?
It exports an asset that you can think of just like a font or an image, or typically you would put it in on a CDN or in your public directory, like a static asset that's available publicly.
Yeah.
But it's a .rive file. And then I think you can have a standalone where if it's like a looping animation where you don't have any interactions, you just embed it. You can put it in an iframe or whatever. Like, I think it almost self-injects in an iframe. You just have to define a parent container with some dimensions, and then it'll default to like inset 0, like try to fill the whole space.
Sure.
So that's the most basic. You've done a looping animation, you just put it on your website. That's not very different than a looping video, although the file might be smaller. But then if you have interaction, aka state machines, you can do it with just normal HTML, JavaScript, but the one I've used is with React. So they give you a Rive component or Rive container, and then you have to give the name of the state machine of the file that you've linked. So you give the source file, and then you have to, basically, it's your job to hook up the different states to different events, like on click or on mouse enter or on mouse move or whatever. And then you can say, whenever that trigger happens, I want the state machine to switch to the other state. So it's incredibly simple as a developer to implement. And the whole concept is the designers are able to create the state machine because it's really design thinking. There's no programming in Rive. Like you really visually assemble different timelines, and then you connect them, and then you decide when do I want this timeline to morph to this timeline, and that's the state machine decision. And then as a dev, you just there's a little console log that gives you the name of all the different states, and then you decide how to trigger them. Like, do you want it to be after 5 seconds, or on scroll, or on hover, or on any really behavior you can hook up with the web.
That's so cool, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's so nice that it's in like a portable little package. Like you're saying, a designer can completely focus on that as a design tool and spit out the asset that goes on a CDN or wherever, and then like if you need to make tweaks to it, it's not that then the developer is like, oh no, I have to like learn how to do all this design stuff. I need to learn like how it's loading in all the layers of the SVG or whatever.
yeah.
Uh, like design can just do those tweaks and hand over another asset.
That's the whole spiel. They keep saying they want to. They have a nice saying I've heard on the video. They want to change the design handover to a design handshake, where the designers and the devs have a contract, and they're like, "Yep, this does this, I do this," and they kind of work together instead of like, "No, go make it happen," and then I'll redline all the problems.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure thought I had never heard about it, and I was like, this has to be brand new, and it's been there for 2 or 3 years, but it's very recently getting a lot of traction because they keep adding functionality. I gotta say, the one as a motion graphic enthusiast, the one thing that's missing right now is motion blur. So motion blur is when you animate really quickly a text flying in. It feels weird if it's completely crisp the whole time, because in real life you can even see in the camera my hand has a lot of kind of a trail of blur when it moves fast, and motion blur recreates this fuzziness while it's moving. And it's the thing you don't notice, but if it's not there, you're just like, oh, it feels almost too robotic and fake. And when you add motion blur to things, everything starts to feel really natural.
For sure.
You might have seen these people doing Screen Studio, that app that makes little call-out zooms and the mouse moves super buttery. Well, if you look at the mouse, it's got motion blur. So every time it moves, it's got this little almost duplicated like reverb stuff to it that makes it feel like whoosh, it's naturally moving instead of the normal cursor that is super, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure they're going to add motion blur because they've been adding all the things that people request. They seem to be on the ball with the just community and stuff. It's
Yeah.
amazing, man.
That sounds incredible, and I'm just starting the download now to check it out because that is awesome.
It's demystified to me. I was like, how when I watch websites like Linear or Clerk, I'm like, I've been doing front end for almost 20 years and I feel like I'm pretty good. And then I look at this and I'm like, it's a video game. It's not front end development. Like how I can't even start to understand how they would program stuff like this. And now I'm like, I haven't verified, but I'm 98% sure it's either Spline, the 3D engine, or Rive. And so both Spline and Rive give you this respond to interaction from the user. So if you go to the Spline website, it's the same. There's a little rabbit sitting on cubes, and you can move the thing in 3D space, and it just keeps looking at the mouse cursor, and you're like, I don't know how you can do this with CSS and JavaScript. And yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's also, well, just from like the icons and things that are around, the little illustrations that are on the Rive site, like it looks like it has uh like physics and stuff built into it. Like you can,
Oh yeah.
yeah, like the thing is reacting in the way that it would react in the real world. Because something that I did like a little bit of games programming at uni, and like something that is incredibly challenging to do is like moving a human like a human moves. Because if you're like, all right, the arm is out like this, and then I want the arm to rotate like this, if you just do that, the arm will rotate from the center rather than the pivot point of the
Yeah.
shoulder. And so you need to like embed all of this information in the thing that you're trying to animate to say like, this is how a shoulder, like this is how an arm should
Yeah.
pivot from the shoulder, this is how a leg should move. and like all the different joints that make up that kind of natural movement. And then you go to run it, and then all of a sudden your person just like scrambles into a big
Disconnect.
ball of mess, and you're like, what even happened there? Doesn't it make
Yeah.
sense? And so yeah, having it looks like this has a whole lot of that physics and like
Well,
real world stuff
I
embedded in it.
I don't know if After Effects and other tools have this. To me, this is more like a proper game animation. I would expect that in Maya 3D or whatever. Rive has that concept of bones, and
Right.
bones are little sticks that you can articulate together. So you tip exactly what you said. You do a bone, which is the from the shoulder to the elbow, and then the forearm, and then the wrist, and then if you they always stay connected, and then you can attribute weight to each of these bones. So if you release them and the hand is really heavy, it's gonna drop first, and like so it has this physics engine and skeleton which lets you prevent that scenario where the thing gets all scrambled,
Hmm.
because it knows like the wrist can never not be connected to the elbow and the shoulder, so that there's never be a scenario where it pops out the right ear instead. And I haven't played with this at all, but I'm like, uh, basketball again. I've always dreamt of helping people with their shooting mechanics, and I was like, as a dev, there must be like I can film someone and then have some overlays to show the elbow should be tucked in a bit more. And I'm like, I could probably do a skeleton of like the different motion and like triple threat and then load it and then like and then trigger between the animation. And I was like, oh my god, I don't have time in my life, but God, I would love to learn to do these things and like do
Yeah.
animated like a little website where you can trigger the different phases of the shooting motion.
Hmm.
It Rive 100% lets you do this and incredibly well, probably better than any other app out there.
Yeah, that's a really clever way to do it. Another cool thing would be if you could like someone sets up their laptop and they're looking at like the technique that they're trying to do, and then it's taking like a webcam feed and using like image recognition stuff to tell them how to correct their stance. Like if they're,
Yep.
like, oh, you need to actually put your leg out 90 degrees or whatever. Uh, that would be super cool. So like you have a little animated icon showing you exactly what to do, and then it's actually like assessing how you're doing on that movement.
That's exactly what I'm
All
dreaming
right,
in
time
my
to build
wildest
it. Let's
dreams.
pivot. The Navbar podcast is now a basketball training app.
Almost like a diffing between the what you're doing and the correct position,
Yeah,
like with the red and green and like the
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
amazing.
You need to tweak this like 20 centimeters to the left.
And literally, Rive would give you that you could probably show the angles because it knows the keyframes are set with real value, math values. So you could probably have like a little bubble that outputs the like the your elbow is out 20 degrees. Try to have it a bit. I'm excited. I don't have time again.
Let's
But
do
yeah,
it.
like I just to me that was it kind of bridges the world between front end development and game slash animation. Of course, you can do little motion graphics like a lower third title that comes and then goes away, but you can go to town if you have skill. I don't have these, but if you have skills in like Pablo Stanley and these people that do like human like real illustration of real people, you can animate these and make crazy stuff.
Very cool. Simon, I have a whole list of things to talk about, but I feel like we probably need to wrap up the episode because we're already at like 43 minutes, and usually we do another 43 minutes of,
Oh,
of,
it'll
of
be
sick picks. So you've been off for like, or not off, we haven't been doing the podcast for like a month.
oh
Surely
no,
you
oh
have
no,
some kind of sick pick that's happened over that month.
oh no.
All right, you think I'm
I'm
gonna I'm
thinking
gonna jump in with I'm
right.
gonna give you an update on my I believe it was my sick pick, maybe I just talked about it last week, but the
Yep,
gravel driveway. So
it
I
was yours.
gravel we got we got a bunch of gravel delivered, a bunch of like small rocks, and we raked it all out. I don't remember what state we were up to in the last time we recorded. Um, but there were two phases to this. So the first phase was got a bunch of rocks delivered. I was building a little like parking spot, like a pad, to park our second car on, so that we could take either car, which has different seats for the kids and things.
Mhm.
Um, And so we got a bunch of rocks delivered and we raked them all out and like, built this nice little pad. And then we went to drive the car onto it and it just sunk into the rocks. And we needed to, yes, play a little bit of a drifty game to get the car back out. And so we realized that we needed to compact it so that the rocks weren't shifting around as much, so they could like hold the weight of the car. And so as part of like, if we were gonna go to the effort of doing that, we should just gravel the rest of the driveway as well. So it's kind of like this parking pad is like a little bit off the driveway. So the driveway starts and then there's this parking pad and then the driveway continues up. And so we got a bunch more rocks delivered and oh my God, gravel rocks, they're small. A lot of gravel rocks, they're heavy. It was exhausting raking this out and like doing. So we had like two tactics going. One of us was raking the rocks down. One of us was like shoveling rocks into a wheelbarrow and moving it like further away. So we didn't need to rake it all that distance. And then the kids were just undoing all of our work and, raking things back in the wrong direction and doing all the things that kids do. And so we finally got all of the rocks laid out. And then we hired, it wasn't a Ryobi, unfortunately. I let down the team. I let down my family.
Just
but
as they were about to press the sponsorship button.
I know. I won't say the brand just in case those brand deals come through from Ryobi. But it was a battery powered something called a compactor, and so we just got a small one. You can get like medium or large ones, but we got a small one, and basically it's just like a plate of metal, like quite heavy metal. And just like a motor that pushes that metal down and like slaps the ground.
Crazy loud, right?
Oh yeah, super loud.
Oh yeah, even electric, it still got the.
Well, this one was petrol, so it was like a whole.
Oh yeah.
Petrol engine. So it was basically like it was very similar to a lawnmower, but super heavy, and it's like smacking the ground over and over again instead of like a blade cutting the grass. But it's like it's so heavy that you basically you don't push it, you kind of just guide it and it just goes. It's just going dunk 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 dunk, hitting the ground over and over again.
You have to not let go. I guess if you let go it stops, but
no, it doesn't. If you let go, it keeps going forwards. There was this very delicate art to trying to control this thing because like we've built this pad on ground that kind of it slopes away, and because all the rocks are really loose, this thing banging on top of it just like sinks down into the rocks and it starts going off on its own.
Run away, yeah.
Yeah. And so I eventually developed a very advanced technique for how I kind of like slowly worked in small squares to like and got slowly bigger and bigger and bigger so that it was giving me enough of a compacted surface to be able to remain on the compacted surface to do the next layer out, if that makes sense. It was a crazy experience. But we did it, and we parked the car there, and it totally worked. And so if you yourself have got a lot of rocks delivered to your house, and you're trying to park a car on it, and it's just sinking straight into the rocks, go and hire yourself a compactor. They are surprisingly, well, depending on, how steep you're trying to work on. If it's nice and flat, super easy to use. You bang out some rocks and then you can park something on it. Physics,
man. It's actually a good way of thinking I never think about. I don't have the tool and I don't want to buy a tool for one use, so I'm gonna hire a professional, which is probably way more expensive than renting the tool for just one use.
Yeah, it was surprisingly price effective. We went through that exact thought process. We were like, all right, we can't do it. We're gonna pay someone else to do it, and then that was gonna be pretty expensive for just pushing some rocks slightly further down into the ground. And so then we were like, all right, if we're gonna, how can we do it ourselves? And then we're like, all right, we need to buy the tool. We went straight to the Ryobi site. Which one can we buy from Ryobi? And then we realized that's going to be quite expensive again for a one use thing. How often are we going to
compact anything else in your life?
Yeah, totally. Maybe we'll get more gravel delivered every 2 years, maybe. And it probably won't even be that much because now we're like building on top of a foundation that's there. So we might not even need a compactor next time. Um, but yeah, so went through that exact thought process. But yeah, Bunnings turns out they just hire out compactors for
Oh,
like
at
4 hours
Bunnings.
or 24 hours. So we had a lot of driveway we needed to compact, so we just borrowed one for 24 hours. And yeah, I think it was like $50, $40, and job done. It's fantastic.
I had
I
a
only almost died like 5 times,
yeah. If
or
you
almost got squashed. I might not have died, but
the rental price is cheap, but then the hospital bill might tack on top of it. It's like the
yeah,
fine print.
yeah. Maybe we should have hired a professional. You're right.
But yeah, I'm looking. I've got some tools here because I'm in my workshop, and there's tools I've bought for one job, and I'm fairly certain I'll never use again. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that these could have been rented out. Nothing major. I never bought like some crazy big stuff, but just like very specific tool to do a specific job and nothing else. And now I'm like,
Yeah,
cool. That's probably it for it.
yeah, yeah.
I
Super
do. I
frustrating.
found my friend a sick pic. I
I'm
don't have
ready.
it here to show you. It's very little. And since you're old as well, you probably might know what it is. My sick pic is Tiger Balm. Do you know
I
what
do know
Tiger
what
Balm
this
is?
is. Yes.
Tiger Balm is a tiny little jar of ointment that's basically heals. It's like a painkiller slash warmer. Think of it as like a sports cream, but it's like very natural and it. Okay, so Tiger Balm got me through my practices and my struggles with my Achilles and knees and hips.
I think
But
Deep Heat is the other
yes,
the,
it's
the
very
other
deep. It feels
branded one,
like
right?
something you would not want to touch your eyes with, like wherever you
I
put
remember
them,
that feeling. I do remember touching my eyes after having some deep heat on my or
or like on a
some Tiger
sunscreen
Balm.
or a wound. Basically, you put it somewhere where it hurts, and then it starts to feel super hot and fresh cold at the same time. It's like an ice pack and a heat pack at the same time. But the ultimate, to me anyway, the ultimate thing is the smell. It smells. It's the best smell in the world, honestly. It's got a mix of eucalyptus and cinnamon and anything that's relaxing and soothing. So if you walk past like a sauna or a spa resort and like it smells this like aromatherapy of people just trying to chill through smells, it has a bit of that smell, but also fresh. And I kid you not, like every now and then I was like, oh, maybe I'll put a little bit here. So like, because it smells really like I was like, I almost wanted to fragrance based on that because it's every time I smell it, I just feel calm and also sporty because it's like the smell that of before exercise, like when you go in a gym, basketball gym with old people, it always smells like this. And now it just reminds me that I'm sporty and I smell good. And I was like, this little jar brought so much. Like I would like take a little sniff every now and then because it smells so good.
Yeah, I remember like it would help a lot with like growing pains and stuff. I feel
Mm.
like when I was a teenager and you just hurt things start hurting. You start getting old when you're a teenager. And
Just
yeah,
like that.
I remember that helped a lot. Is it like what does it actually do? Is it like it's like a muscle relaxant, right? But it goes
Yeah,
from the skin.
it really relaxes the muscles, but it also provides deep heat, like you said, for like that kind of helps ligaments and joints kind of feel. And there's some properties that are like anti-inflammatory and almost like painkillery. Like it's almost like a Panadol and Nurofen mixed together. Like I'm not a doctor, but it's like I managed to get rid of pain by just applying this.
Yeah.
Uh, and like if there's a Voltaren gel, which is like the sports gel, it's similar to this, but Voltaren smells less cool, and it only has the heat stuff. It doesn't have the mint fresh. Like
Hmm.
I don't know the feeling like whenever you have mint in anything, it makes everything it touches feel really cold. Like especially if there's wind. So that Tiger Balm has that. If you go outside and you move your arms, they just feel like you had the best shower scrub ever, and it smells good and it heals. And I was like, this tiny little jar, it's like $5 or $6 at Woolies, and I was like, I'm gonna buy a bunch of them. Just like put it a bit everywhere. Like it feels like you're also doing some therapy, like mental calmness. It's amazing. This is
Yeah.
my sick pick.
That's an excellent sick pick. I
Yeah.
feel like, yeah, it was worth the wait. It was worth that little bit of you spending some time thinking, because that's an awesome sick pick. I should definitely get some of that, because I constantly, get sore shoulders and things, and like my ankle from the from my basketball injury. I feel like after I run, my ankle, feels
Yep.
it for a little bit.
Yep.
That would be I can imagine that feeling of it of it relaxing my ankle. Hmm.
So, I mean, it probably works after, but it almost works better during. Like
Right.
you put it as you're about to go, and then it kind of wrap this protection layer or like confidence layer or whatever. But it
Hmm.
also probably is good after. But you'll see, like most cream, like if you put sunscreen or any cream, you put it and then you gotta wipe the rest somewhere on a towel or on your bum or whatever. I promise you, if you do Tiger Balm, you're like, ooh, where can I put the rest? Here, maybe here. Like you
It's
start
like a
to
cologne for sports
yeah,
people.
yeah, but you're like, I don't want to. It's so good. I'm not wasting this on a towel. Or like you think, oh, where else does it hurt? Maybe here a little bit. You
And
try
as you get
and
older, just like everything hurts a little bit.
you just invent. Oh, probably shoulder will. It's not gonna hurt the shoulder if I add some here.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's so good that you kind of like consider you. I would never consider wasting a little bit on a paper towel like I would do with any other cream, really.
Yeah. That is an awesome sick pick. I'm going to go get myself some Tiger Balm for sure. But thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Navbar. This has been super fun. We should try and get back to doing this weekly and both of us stop being so busy all the time. But thank you so much for joining me, Simon, and we'll see you again next week.
See you next week. Bye.